Welcome to the JDM Vault, where revs hit red and legends are reborn. Today we're cracking open the case on a car that didn't just join the Supercar Club, it kicked down the front door. This is the 1991 Honda NSX. Proof, reliability, and razor-sharp performance could shake hands. Before this car, everyday supercars sounded like a contradiction, like a vegetarian steakhouse. Honda said, "Hold my sake," and built one anyway. Retrobulls Vault, now unlocking the imports that changed the game. Here's a factoid that gets mangled more than a fender in a demolition derby. Everyone loves to say Ayrton Senna was the NSX development driver. He wasn't. The Brazilian Formula One legend, who piled up wins in a Honda-powered McLarens before his tragic death in 1994, did test the car at Honda's Suzuka circuit and push engineers to stiffen the chassis further. Valuable input, no doubt, but the real workhorse behind the wheel was Motohiro Kurosawa, nicknamed Gonson, who championed using the brutal Nürburgring Nordschleife as the proving ground, along with an all-aluminum body and VTEC power. Picture Kurosawa lapping that green hell like a surgeon on a house call, then huddling with engineers to diagnose exactly where the chassis flexed. They hand-welded aluminum braces on the spot, fixing the problem like it was duct tape with a PhD, then send him back out to confirm. Round and round this went, with every data point beamed straight to Japan and crunched inside a Cray supercomputer, translating raw laps into a stiffer, sharper monocoque. Senna gave the NSX its polish, Kurosawa gave it its backbone. So next time someone in the comments swears Senna designed this car from scratch, feel free to gently set that record straight. Credit where credit's due, and Gonson earned every bit of his. Every legend needs an origin story, and this one starts, oddly enough, with a chainsaw. Around 1994, Honda engineers sliced a Honda City clean in half and reassembled it with the engine tucked behind the driver, powering the rear wheels, automotive Frankenstein surgery in the name of science. The project itself never went anywhere, but the joyrides around the parking lot lit a fire under the engineers, convincing Honda brass that the company was ready for a real sports car. So, in 1984, Honda enlisted Italian styling house Pininfarina to sketch the HPX concept, short for Honda Pininfarina Experimental, powered by a mid-mounted double overhead camshaft 2.0-liter V6. Management issued one blunt directive: this thing had better run with anything wearing an Italian or German badge. No pressure. The HPX concept evolved into the NSX prototype, new sports car experimental, before shedding its hyphen to become the NSX we know and love today. Chief designer Masahito Nakano and executive chief engineer Shigeru Hura, who later steered the S2000 project, led the charge, sculpting a car built to humble the establishment. What started as a sliced-up economy car in a parking lot ended up as a legitimate rival to Ferrari and Porsche. Automotive proof that sometimes the wildest ideas begin with duct tape curiosity and engineers who refuse to take impossible for an answer. Under that low sculpted hood sits Honda's 3-liter C30A V6, and this little engine had a serious chip on its shoulder. It churned out 270 horses at a screaming 7,300 RPM, backed by 210 foot-pounds of torque, arriving at 6,500 RPM. Numbers that meant this engine wanted to be revved, not babied. Bore measured 3.54 inches, stroke came out at 3.07 inches, and compression sat at a punchy 10.2 to 1, all riding on 8 sturdy main bearings. Fuel arrived courtesy of a multi-point fuel injection, precise as a sushi chef's knife work. This wasn't a lazy torque-fat V8 lumbering off the line. It was a high-revving perfectionist, happiest when the tachometer needle was flirting with redline. Honda borrowed serious know-how from its Formula One program to build this thing, and you can feel the pedigree that moment the VTEC kicks the engine into its second, angrier personality. It's the automotive equivalent of a mild-mannered librarian who moonlights as a black belt, composed until provoked, then absolutely ferocious. Where a lot of contemporaries relied on brute displacement to get noticed, the C30A earned its reputation the hard way, through obsessive engineering and a willingness to chase every last horsepower to the top of the rev range. It's a small displacement engine that never once feels small once that needle starts climbing. Now, let's talk about getting that V6's fury to the pavement. The NSX paired its engine with a Honda D2A4 5-speed manual gearbox, a transmission engineered with the same obsessive precision as everything else in this car. Think of it less like a tool and more like a scalpel. Every shift crisp, short, and mechanically honest, and none of the rubbery vagueness that plagued so many sports cars of the era. Honda's engineers treated the gearbox as an extension of the driver's hand, not just a box of gears bolted between engine and wheels. Roll through the gates and you get feedback that feels almost conversational, like the car is politely confirming your request before executing it flawlessly. In an age when supercars often demanded you wrestle the shifter into submission, the NSX simply asks you to guide it. Smooth, direct, and endlessly satisfying, gear after gear after gear. It's a reminder that Honda didn't just want the NSX to be fast in a straight line on a spec sheet. They wanted every single input from throttle to clutch to shifter to feel like an extension of the driver's own nervous system. That 5-speed wasn't an afterthought bolted on to move power rearward. It was a core part of the whole engineering philosophy, tuned with the same fanatical attention as the chassis and the V6 sitting just ahead of it. Here's where Honda really flexed. Pun fully intended. The NSX rode on an aluminum monocoque chassis, a decision that shaved roughly 440 pounds compared to a traditional steel structure. That's like the car showing up to the gym, dropping a couple of grown adults' worth of weight, and still walking out stronger than before. Front and rear double wishbone suspension rounded out the setup, itself trimmed down by another 44 pounds thanks to more aluminum construction. The result was a chassis that felt taut and communicative, translating road texture straight into the driver's palms without unnecessary weight muddying the message. Where rivals often felt like they were hauling extra baggage, the NSX traveled light, turning every corner into a conversation between tarmac and tires rather than a wrestling match. This aluminum-first philosophy wasn't just a party trick. It was a structural backbone that let the rest of the car's brilliance shine through. Building an entire monocoque out of aluminum in the early 90s wasn't cheap or easy. Honda had to develop new welding techniques and even build dedicated tooling just to make it happen at scale. That's the kind of commitment that separates a company chasing a marketing headline from one genuinely obsessed with getting the engineering right down to the last rivet. Step inside the NSX and you won't find a spaceship cockpit. You'll find something more like a tailored suit. Minimal, purposeful, and built entirely around the driver. Honda called it a GT Essentials approach, stripping away distraction in favor of function. Low-hung leather bucket seats dropped the hip point to lower the car's center of gravity, while the low cowl let the dash sit down low too, creating that snug, helmet-like cockpit feel. Seats adjusted electrically, and the footbox left plenty of room so your feet never felt like they were playing pedal twister. Visibility was outstanding for a car this low as well. 84.2 degrees forward, 79.7 degrees rearward, and 311.8 degrees total with scalloped headliners carving out extra headroom. The dash kept things refreshingly analog. Round dials, white numerals on black, built for a quick glance rather than a deep dive. Creature comforts were present but restrained. Electric windows, electric seats, cruise control, climate control, and a genuinely sophisticated alarm system watching the doors, hatch, hood, trunk, battery, cable, radio, and ignition. No touchscreens, no digital clutter, just a cockpit that keeps you locked onto the road ahead. 3 decades later, that restraint almost feels ahead of its time in a world now drowning in menus and touchscreens. Rounding out the hardware is a helical gear-type limited slip differential, built right into the transaxle transmission. Think of it as the quiet diplomat under the car, making sure power gets distributed to whichever rear wheel has the best grip instead of just dumping it all on the one that's already given up and started spinning. It's not flashy. It won't get its own poster on a kid's bedroom wall, but it's the unsung hero keeping the NSX composed out of the corner. Built into the transaxle rather than tucked on separately, it's one more example of Honda treating every component as part of one cohesive machine, not a pile of parts bolted together and hoping for the best. Numbers time, and These ones matter just as much as the horsepower figures. The NSX stretched 173.4 inches long, spanned 71.3 inches wide, and hunkered down at just 46.1 inches tall, low enough to make speed bumps feel like a personal challenge. Its wheelbase measured 99.6 inches, giving it a planted, confident stance through corners, while curb weight landed at 3,010 pounds, remarkably trimmed thanks to all the aluminum engineering we talked about earlier. Putting it all together, and you get proportions that look like they were drawn with a ruler and a grudge against excess. Wide enough to feel planted, low enough to slip through the air, and light enough that every one of those 270 ponies actually had somewhere to go. This wasn't a car built to impress on a spec sheet alone. It was a car built so every dimension served the driving experience. Compare those numbers to the Ferraris and Lamborghinis prowling showrooms in 1991, and the NSX doesn't just hold its own. It undercuts most of them on weight while matching them stride for stride and stance. That's the kind of quiet dimensional confidence that doesn't need a wing on the size of a barn door to prove a point. The proportions themselves do the talking long before the engine even fires up. Every legend has scuffs on its armor, and the NSX is no exception. On the strength side, this car basically rewrote what a daily drivable supercar could be: reliable enough to start every morning without drama, yet sharp enough to hang with exotics wearing far pricier badges. The aluminum construction, the F1 honed engine, the surgical steering, it all added up to a car that felt like a scalpel, where its rivals felt like sledgehammers. But perfection is a moving target, and the NSX had its trade-offs too. That 270 horsepower V6, while beautifully engineered, couldn't quite match the raw thunder of Italian V8s and V12s of the era. This was a car that won with finesse, not brute force. The interior, while elegant in its simplicity, could feel almost too restrained for buyers expecting flash for their money. And because the NSX aged so gracefully and reliably, values crept up quietly for years before collectors caught on, meaning some bargains got away before anyone noticed. Still, weigh it all together, and the NSX remains proof that doing fewer things brilliantly beats doing everything loudly. It didn't need a wild swing or a screaming V12 to earn its spot in the history books. It earned that spot by simply being better engineered than almost anything else on the road. Badge be damned. So there you have it. The 1991 Honda NSX, the car that walked into the supercar world uninvited and left everyone else rewriting their business plans. It wasn't the loudest, it wasn't the most powerful, but it might just be the most quietly revolutionary machine to ever wear a Honda badge. It proved that everyday usability and razor-edge performance weren't enemies, they could be teammates. Now I want to hear from you. Would you daily drive an NSX, or does it belong locked away for weekend blasts only? Drop your answer down in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious which side of the fence you're all on. If this deep dive fired you up, smash that like button, subscribe, so you don't miss the next legend we pull out of the vault. Because trust me, the shelves in here are packed with more icons just waiting for their turn in the spotlight. Every car in this vault has a story worth telling, and the NSX just proved that some of the best ones come wrapped in the quietest packages. Until next time, remember what this car taught an entire industry: keep it boosted, keep it classic.